Good day everyone, my name is Stijn Peters. I'm a Senior Product Manager at CM.com and today I will tell you all about the latest status of RCS and especially some of the biggest myths that are still surrounding RCS as a technology. RCS stands for Rich Communication Services and has been around for over a decade but actually never really took off until this year. Google and GSMA joined forces to give RCS that final push towards the market and that marketing power to really make it a technology that people want to embrace and that people want to use. It has been a buzzword around many big shows around the world, and it looks like RCS is now finally ready to take off as a technology, as a follow-up of SMS. However, that doesn't mean that everything is crystal clear yet that has to do with RCS. So today I will look at 5 of the biggest myths that currently surround RCS and I will try to bust them or not. We'll see. Starting with myth number 1. RCS, what's the use? Everybody already has WhatsApp or WeChat or any other messaging channel. Well, let's have a look at this. Of course, there are already a plethora of different messaging channels around. People use WhatsApp, people use SMS, people use Facebook Messenger, and there will be lots of more messaging channels around the corner that we don't know of yet that we will see the coming years. However, RCS has a couple of key features that really make it a unique proposition for messaging and that will make it an important factor for users and companies alike that want to embrace this new technology. Why is RCS relevant? Two main factors. First of all, it is natively available on any Android or Windows phone with an Android version of 9.0 or higher. Take for example Samsung, who said that all their new phones, for example the Samsung S9 series, Samsung S8 series and a couple of other models will natively have an RCS supported chat app on the phone. That does mean that users, when they buy such a phone, do not have to download and install a third-party app to receive rich content messaging. That also means that you don't have to rely on the third-party apps as a company to be available for your end users. Secondly, RCS basically provides a conversational messaging experience that goes beyond the traditional conversational messaging that you see now within WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger, for example. Let's look at some of the key features that you get when you embrace RCS. Conversational messaging 2.0, what does that mean within RCS? First of all, you can send all kinds of dynamic content. Of course you can send a video, you can send a GIF, you can send an image, but you can also send interactive questionnaires, for example. You can embed direct payment links into your flow. You can do in-chat Google searching, so customers do not have to leave the chat flow to search up, for example, company information. Also, what is very important and which will give RCS a bit of trust for end users, you as a company, you can get a verified business sender status. So people will see that you as a company have an account, an RCS account which is verified, and that will give a bit of trust for the end users when they receive messages from such an account. What is also very important is that you can brand your RCS flow. This makes it possible to make a natural extension of, for example, your company website or your company app within an RCS flow. You might even want to shift some of the functionalities of such an app towards an RCS flow, which is much more easily maintainable than an iOS or an Android app, for example. Last but not least, you can get true metrics of your RCS and, for example, also receive confirmation when a message is sent, which is not possible with SMS, for example. So let's look at myth number 2. Will RCS be the end of SMS? Maybe split that up in 2 different parts. First of all, look at the technology protocol. Of course, RCS is the proclaimed follow-up of SMS technology-wise. SMS is an ancient protocol, and RCS is a much more superior technology than SMS will be. So yes, in the coming years, it most likely will replace SMS as a technology. However, RCS still needs to take a couple of hurdles before that actually happens. There are 3 main key factors that we need to take into account for RCS to become a success. Number 1 is that the operator adoption is key. Without operators having RCS ready networks, there's no way to send an RCS message if your network does not support it, because it will just revert back to SMS. Secondly, of course, the phone manufacturers like Samsung and HTC and all the other Android and Windows phone manufacturers, they need to embrace RCS as well. If they do not update their software and their hardware capabilities to support RCS, people will not be able to buy phones to send RCS messages. So, of course, that is also a major factor. And third, which is a result of the first two, is that companies that want to send RCS messages to their end users, they need to be able and willing to embed RCS into their messaging flows. And of course, that takes effort and time to implement. So these three key factors still need to be taken into account for RCS adoption. But even then, if all those factors will fly, then it's still questionable if SMS will be completely gone and an SMS specifically looking as a plain text message. Sometimes a simple text message fulfills a perfect purpose. Why use rich content media if you want to send a simple one-time password or a delivery receipt, for example, or a simple notification? You'd also need to take into account that maintaining a rich content messaging flow does require and does give an extra burden towards the organization, support organization of a company. So you also need to choose wisely what to use RCS for and what type of content you're going to send. Looking at myth number 3. So, and that's all about pricing. People think often that RCS is still an untransparent and complex pricing structure. Looking at that, that's actually true. So, because RCS is still in a phase which you could probably best describe as an early adoption phase in the market. And as with any product, pricing still needs to go along that way as well. So companies are now experimenting with different pricing strategies, and there's no single successful pricing model yet. So you could think of, for example, pricing per message terminated or per message originated on a mobile phone. But you can also think about types of messages. So maybe a simple plain text message via RCS costs less than a rich media like a video or a questionnaire. You could also think about data usage, so and that's of course related to the type of message. And what we also see is that companies are looking at a combination of these different pricing. So that's still to be crystallized in the market the coming months and years, what will be the final pricing model. However, at CM.com we like to try keep it simple and transparent. So if you start with RCS with CM.com, you pay the same price for an RCS message as you would pay for an SMS message. Looking at myth number 4. Apple is ignoring RCS, so why bother about RCS? And that's maybe a very logical statement to make. Looking at the sheer brand value and popularity of Apple products in the market, people could think that having an Android and Windows Phone only messaging channel doesn't make a lot of sense. However, when we look at the actual facts in the market, we see a different picture. Android is by far the biggest operating system for mobile phones in the global market space, with over 85% of market share, and it's actually predicted to grow even further the coming years to 86-87% market share. Of course, in markets such as the United States, Apple is very dominant with over 50% of market share. But if you are a global company and you want to embrace or target your audience on a global scale, you need to look at the global picture as well, and Android is by far the biggest. That also means that you could maybe rephrase this statement a little bit. Apple ignores RCS, but why should we bother? And maybe Apple will embrace RCS in the future, maybe not. But in the end, what is most important is that as an enterprise, if you have a global presence, you need to make sure that you can reach your audience on the preferred channel they want to use. So it can be RCS on Android, it can be Apple Business Messaging on iOS, it can be WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. You need to be able to serve them all. And that's what we as CM.com can also deliver to you. Myth number 5. The adoption rate of RCS by operators is sluggish. This was actually a statement that was true maybe a couple of years ago. but this year it's really taking off. It is essential, of course, like I earlier mentioned, that the operators start implementing RCS in their network. That does mean that they need to technically prepare their network to be able to handle RCS. That requires an investment, but a lot of operators now do see the added value of RCS and start to adopt it. So we see over 60 operators worldwide that already have RCS ready networks, and 90 plus are actually in the plan to start migrating their networks to RCS capabilities over the coming months. So what does it mean for you as a company if you already want to start RCS today? Well, there are already a few markets that are completely 100% covered by RCS. Basically Japan and Mexico. And then looking at specifically Mexico, which has a huge Android market share, this would be a market where you as a company could start trialing with RCS because the market is ready, the operators are ready, and the adoption rate of Android is very high. It also proves that if major countries like these two are completely on board for RCS, it's only a matter of time before more countries will follow and we will see a global coverage for RCS for you as a company to use. So, wrapping things up and looking back at these 5 myths that I just covered, what can we say about RCS? Yes, it will become a very important channel in the messaging space. It does require a couple of hurdles to be taken to become a globally adopted and accepted messaging channel. But what we can conclude is that it's going to be a positive impact on conversational messaging landscape over the coming years. And if you want to serve your customers on the channel they want to use and they want to be reached upon, RCS is something that you cannot neglect. If you would like to know more about what CM can do for you in terms of RCS adoption and technology, please get in touch.